Well, it's now time for us to, as I said, acknowledge and congratulate the best of the best. Those who've not only succeeded in getting to the end of their EMPA, but have received awards for their merit in doing so. Already, anyone who is chosen to be part of the EMPA has been selected by their government and their department as someone who has high potential. So the people in this room receiving awards tonight are obviously people that we look forward to seeing scale the heights in the future and be in a position to implement the kind of insights and instructions that we got from Peter tonight. So I'm going to hand over to Professor Michael Mintram, who will be known certainly to anybody here who's had anything to do with the EMPA. He's Academic Director of the Executive Master of Public Administration, and he's been in that role at ANZOG since 2012. He also holds a joint professorial appointment at Monash University. Many of you will know from his writings that he's an expert in the area of public policy, effective approaches to organising and conducting it. He's a New Zealander by birth. We seem to be learning a lot from New Zealanders these days, Peter. But he's also studied not only in New Zealand but in the United States, including getting his PhD from the State University of New York at Stony Brook. Before coming here, however, he had been an academic in New Zealand. He was Associate Professor at the University of Auckland. We're very pleased that he made the trip across the ditch, as they say, and it's a great pleasure to hand over to you, Michael, to take the proceedings forward for the EMPA Awards.
Well, thank you very much for that, Gary. Let me see, I've got some notes here. Yes, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa to my fellow New Zealanders in the room. Welcome to the EMPA Awards ceremony, where we showcase the outstanding achievements of our EMPA alumni to the wider ANZOG community and highlight their continued support, the continued support of our prize sponsors who are here tonight. The EMPA degree offers a world-leading education in the art, craft and science of public sector management, and I'm both proud and humbled to offer overall academic leadership to the degree. It's a major undertaking by many people, and before I get going tonight, I'd like to acknowledge the intellect and the public spirit and the energy of the degree faculty. Many of them are actually here tonight, which is great. And also to acknowledge the incredible support of ANZOG staff, especially the programs team. You know, in Philadelphia last week, you would have seen Hillary Clinton reminding people that it takes a village to raise a child. And it seems to me it takes something more than a village to groom exemplary public sector leaders. And at ANZOG, we do that through deep partnerships with government and with universities. And thank you all for being part of that big village. Well, as Gary said, actually, the degree participants are all exhibitors of a great deal of tenacity and effort, and to win a prize takes even more commitment. So every prize recipient here tonight has just gone the extra mile in many ways in order to secure that accomplishment, and I think it's really important to remember that as they come up here this evening. It's their evening, and it's a wonderful moment in their careers, and I think as Gary was intimating there, a real strong indicator of the things that they can do in the future to continue to make the public sectors in these two countries really terrific. Well, let me get into the details. The subject prizes that we're going to award shortly are for each of the ANZOG core subjects and are awarded to the students who receive the highest score in each of these subjects. It's calculated by combining the marks in all assessments for each subject. The student with the highest total score in each subject is awarded the subject prize. And this year we're celebrating the EMPA cohort of 2014. The order for the awards ceremony as follows. I will announce the subject prize, then ask the prize sponsor to make their way to the stage, followed by the prize recipient. And we'll then take a couple of moments to photograph each presentation. It sounds arduous, but we can rattle through it fairly quickly, I think. The first prize to be presented tonight is the EY prize for delivering public value. And may I ask EY partner Oliver Jones to present the prize. Welcome also to Meredith Scott, who is also with us tonight from EY. We have joint winners of the EY prize for delivering public value this year, and they are Jean Doherty from the Department of the Chief Minister in the Northern Territory, Good, yeah, and I'm going to work on my inflection too. So, okay, so we had joint winners of the EY Prize for Delivering Public Value this year, and the other winner is Robin Zakharov from the Department of Communities, Child Safety and Disability Services in Queensland. While the photos are being taken, I'd like to acknowledge Rachel Bacon, Deputy Chief Executive from the Department of the Chief Minister, and Craig Allen, Commissioner for Public Employment in the Northern Territory, as well as Robin's manager, Helen Ferguson, and Rob Setter, the Queensland Public Service Commission's Acting Chief Executive, who are all here with us this evening. Thanks to you all for your support of these prize recipients and your ongoing support for ANZOG. Okay, the second, you're all good, Gary, you're ready to go? Yeah, stay there. Yeah, that's right. The second prize to be presented this evening is the Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand Prize for Government in a Market Economy. May I ask Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand representative Renee Legrand to present the prize. Thank you to Renee and also to Renee's colleague Debbie Harper for joining us tonight. The winner of the Chartered Accountants Australia and New Zealand Prize for Government in a Market Economy is Dr. Louise Massara from the Western New South Wales Local Health District. Thank you to Louise's manager, Catherine Nolan, and New South Wales Public Service Commissioner Graham Head for joining us to celebrate this evening. We greatly appreciate your support and all that you do for ANZOG. The next prize is the KPMG Prize for Designing Public Policies and Programs. I'm especially delighted to acknowledge excellence in this subject because I have been the subject leader for a while. May I ask Michael Hiller from KPMG to present the prize. And welcome to Meg Downey from KPMG, who's also with us tonight. We have joint winners of the KPMG Prize for Designing Public Policies and Programs again this year, and they are both New Zealanders, incidentally. Interesting that. Yeah. Who would have thought, Gary? You're the statistician, right? Who would have thought? So, the first is Helen Allred, who is currently with the New Zealand Treasury. And I'd like to acknowledge Helen's manager, Geraldine Woods, who's here this evening. Well, I said we had joint winners of the KPMG Prize for Designing Public Policies and Programs, and the second winner is Mark Bradbury from the Ministry of Social Development in New Zealand. We'd now like to present the Urbis Prize for Decision Making Under Uncertainty. May I ask Dr. Linda Curti from Urbis to present the prize? And welcome to Linda's colleague Poppy Wise from Urbis. Thank you for being here. We also have joint winners for the Urbis Prize for Decision Making Under Uncertainty this year. And the first is Ria Price from the Natural Resources Commission in New South Wales. Both prize winners for this prize are from New South Wales, so you can see there's quite a lot of patterns here. The other of the joint winners for the Urbis Prize for Decision Making Under Uncertainty this year is Mick Willing from the New South Wales Police Force. I'd like to just acknowledge RIA's manager Bryce Wild and the New South Wales Natural Resources Commissioner Dr. John Kinnery AM, as well as Mick's manager, Assistant Commissioner Mark Jenkins, who are all celebrating with us this evening. Thanks so much for making this such a special evening for the award recipients. Next is the ANZOG Alumni Prize for Governing by the Rules. And to present the prize, we have the President of the ANZOG Victorian Alumni Chapter, Assistant Commissioner Luke Cornelius. Luke is making his way to the stage. Congratulations to Larissa Kelly from the Department of Planning in Western Australia, who's the recipient of the prize this evening. Next up is the CPA Australia Prize for Leading Public Sector Change. May I ask Kerry Main from CPA Australia to present the prize. The winner of the CPA Australia Prize for Leading Public Sector Change is Malcolm Southall from the Department of Infrastructure and Regional Development. I'd like to say thank you to the Honourable John Lloyd, PSM, the Australian Public Service Commissioner, for being here with us this evening. The next prize to be awarded tonight is the valedictorian. The valedictorian is the student who receives the highest mark in all completed subjects prior to the final subject, which is the work-based project. ANZOG's Chief Executive and Dean, to my right, Professor Gary Banks, AO, will present the prize. The winner of the valedictorian prize for 2014 is David Nicholson from the Department of Premier and Cabinet in Tasmania. As valedictorian, David delivered the final address at the conclusion of the 2014 cohort's EMPA. And thanks also to Greg Johannes from the Department of Premier and Cabinet in Tasmania for being here tonight, as well as Matthew Daly, who was David's manager during his studies. It's an honour to have you join us here. The next prize is the Work-Based Project Prize that is awarded to a team who worked together in this subject. And to determine the winners of the Work-Based Project Prize, the report and presentation marks are combined. May I ask Tony Warren to come to the stage to present the Telstra Prize for Work-Based Project to be presented to Team 16 of Cohort 2014. Welcome also to Jack Dan and colleagues from Telstra. Thanks for joining us. Now, the Work-Based Project Team 16 included David Burns from Victoria. David is here, so come on up, David. And while the photos are being taken, we also have also other members of that team were Heather Whitaker from Victoria, Dean Yeaman from the Commonwealth, Joe Stevenson from Queensland, and Andrew Reid from Victoria. But unfortunately they couldn't join us here this evening. Our final prize this evening is the Dean's Prize. The Dean's Prize is calculated by combining the students' marks from all core subjects. The student with the highest mark in the cohort is awarded this prize, which is the overall academic award. And Gary is going to present the prize. The winner of the Dean's Prize for EMPA Cohort 2014 was Andrew Reid from Victoria, but he is unfortunately unable to be with us this evening, and so David Burns will collect Andrew's award on his behalf. That concludes the giving out of the certificates, but now I would like to invite David Nicholson back up to the stage, the 2014 cohort valedictorian, to say a few words on behalf of Andrew and the 2014 cohort. So thanks for coming up here.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's a great honour to speak on Andrew's behalf and on behalf of all the prize winners that are with us here tonight. I grew up in a small town in the northwest of Tasmania. It's a beautiful part of the world. You should all visit it. Cradle Mountain is there, the Tarkine, as well as the beautiful coastlines of the northwest and the west coast of Tasmania. And I vividly remember my upbringing in that environment. It was a fantastic place to grow up. But I also remember very profoundly another thing from that time, which is quite different. It was 1992 and I lined up with thousands, literally thousands of people to try to get a job at the local McDonald's. I was a kid looking for a part-time job and some pocket money, but there were people there who were there for a very different reason. You see, Burnie was like many rural and regional towns in Australia and New Zealand that had an industrial heritage. Its best days were behind it, and the men and women who'd relied on and worked at its APPM pulp mill for many years since it had opened in the 30s were now increasingly out of work. The halcyon days of its industry and economic growth were behind them, and as if to put a full stop on that sentence, the same year as McDonald's opened in that town, the APPM dispute broke out, unleashing industrial and political mayhem for many weeks. It seemed like an eternity to me at the time. The men and women in the town, it seemed to me, had been fighting to save something that had pretty much already gone. Unemployment, already very high in that town, was set to go higher. Youth unemployment was set to soar above 20%. That was the upbringing environment that I had, one of natural beauty but complex policy problems. So that taught me two important lessons. One was the value of the job. I did actually get one. I have the honour of saying I washed dishes at McDonald's, one of my great career achievements, but thousands didn't, and they all needed it more than me, and it was, quite a strong lesson for me. I also learnt that day the very real human dimension of the policy and economic challenges that we face as public servants in the present. There are many, many Burnies in Australia and New Zealand, and they represent a pretty big public policy and economic policy challenge on an almost unimaginable scale. Of course, over the nearly 25 years since that all happened, lots of things have changed, but the fundamental issues haven't. We still have persistently high unemployment in that region. We have declining full-time jobs. We have low educational attainment levels. Youth disengagement's a significant issue. We have jobless families spanning generations and poor health outcomes. The list just goes on. And that is despite the best intentions and countless programs that have been put in place by governments and policy leaders of all persuasions. We've failed to make a lasting and positive impact in those areas. It's not because of a lack of trying or a lack of political will or public policy will. Rather, it's because places like Burnie, facing challenges like Burnie, represent wicked public policy problems. And there are no easy fixes to these things. So I look back on that time and I realise I was lucky. My parents saw the value in an education. They let me and my brothers go hundreds of kilometres away to go to university at 18. And I was very, very thankful for that. But many of the kids I grew up with down there, they weren't that lucky. They didn't have those chances. And now when I return to the coast, occasionally I see some of them, and they are aged beyond their years. Some are really unhealthy, some have drug and alcohol issues, many face limited future prospects, loneliness, and have a low quality of life. So something's got to change. I think our public service thinking has to change, and Peter's speech really is emblematic of that. We need new ideas and new approaches and new ways of working across the government, non-government and private sectors to deliver public value to our communities and to respond to the increasingly complex and challenging problems they face. That's where ANZSOG fits in. My MPA journey, as I'm sure it was for my colleagues, was an amazing experience. It was one of the best of my career and my life. Theoretical learning we gained through our high-quality academics who taught us from around ANZ and the rest of the world was truly exceptional and challenging. And the practical insights we gained, more importantly, from each other at times and the friendships we formed, they were rich and rewarding. And we all had a lot of fun too, don't get me wrong. Indeed, I've found I've missed all of you since we had that great celebration in Wellington in November last year, and it's excellent to see so many of you again tonight. So to me, we're the next generation of public service leaders who will try to tackle the public policy problems like those that arise in Burnie. And I really don't think we could have had a better education or experience for that task that's in front of us. Around us, as we've studied, the public services continue to change. It's changing around us now, and we have to make sense of it. Indeed, to quote a former DPAC secretary in Tasmania, it seems to me at times that the public sector has become the permanent custodian of society's permanent problems. So new ideas, new thinking, new skills are required to equip us for the future to lead in those circumstances, and ANZSOG's EMPA has definitely given us those. We've got a strong grounding in the theories of modern public administration. We've got the networks, the contacts, the theories, ideas and experiences to survive these challenges and thrive. And most importantly, we've got the benefit that we gained through learning about and seeing the world through each other's eyes through the course. And we've learnt now how to understand problems differently and to relentlessly seek new answers to these old policy challenges. So I'd like to conclude by thanking Michael and the academic staff, and particularly the support staff, for all of the work that you did to look after us in the 2-year journey that we went on together. You taught us well, and you had 100 or so of us on time in the right place with the right things in the right hotel nearly always. And and when you didn't, that was usually our fault, not yours. I would also really like to thank Greg Johannes, the head of the State Service in Tasmania, and Matthew Daly, my former DG, for backing me and investing in me to undertake this program. They're both here tonight, and I very much appreciate their friendship and their support. Lastly, thank you again to you, my colleagues and my cohort, for being such a great bunch and for teaching me such a lot about the art of public administration. The friendships and bonds we formed are lifelong and are possibly the greatest aspect of our time together. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David, for that really heartfelt talk. It was really, really impressive. Thanks so much. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our prize sponsors for their continued support of the ANZSOG EMPA Awards. These subject prizes mean a huge amount to our winners, and it's really generous of you to provide them. And to the managers and supporters of our prize winners tonight, thank you very much for attending this evening and for the support that you've given your colleagues here. To all of our EMPA Cohort 2014 prize winners, congratulations. ANZOG wishes you well for your future careers. You're already doing great. You're going to do even better, and that's fantastic. We look forward to you becoming proactive members of the ANZOG alumni community, and personally I'm really looking forward to inviting you back to contribute in our courses, particularly in the new course, Managing Public Sector Organisations, where we're doing a lot of team teaching and including people like yourselves in the teaching team. So thanks so much for being here, and all the best for your futures. I'd now like to call on Gary Banks. You all know Gary. It says here in my notes, ANZOG's Chief Executive and Dean, so I should say it again. We all know who he is. To say a few words. Thanks, Gary.
I don't need reminding, I'm sort of conscious of it. In the first year I did this, I probably did, because I've only been in the role a few months, but time flies. Well, can I add my congratulations too to all those who've won those awards. You know, it's a fantastic achievement, it really is. And to David, that address, I think, if that's a measure of the standard of the people that we're graduating through our EMPA, I think Australia has some very positive things to look forward to in the future, notwithstanding great challenges that we face. I also add my thanks again to Mike, to all of the sponsors. A particularly special sponsor for tonight is Telstra, who've sponsored the Patterson oration. And I'd like to welcome Tony Warren, who's Group Executive Corporate Affairs with Telstra, who's going to make an important announcement which has to do with what we're going to drink and eat coming up. I should just say that I'd like to claim a bit of Tony's success in Telstra, because at one stage he came to the Productivity Commission as a fairly naive academic kind of person. And he spent about 6 months working with us in the hothouse atmosphere of the Productivity Commission on telecommunications issues. And of course, he then went on and did a whole range of other things, including working with Henry Ergas in ECG, and then going on to Telstra, where he's had a great career. And his focus is on regulatory affairs, very appropriately, government relations, engagement, external and internal communications, and so on. So I'd like to think, Tony, that your 6 months with us contributed to all of that. And thank you again, and thank you to Telstra. Jack Dan, as was mentioned, is also in the room, and other colleagues, for your sponsorship, and give you the opportunity to come and say what you have to say.
Thanks, Gary. And one of the things I did learn at the Productivity Commission is to always agree with Gary. Hey, look, can I add my congratulations to the EMPA prize winners, and indeed all the graduates of the program. I was talking to one of my, before I can speak, I always have to get my notes cleared. And I was talking to one of the head of media who works for me. And she goes, "Oh, I'm an EMPA graduate. Oh, it's fantastic, best time of my life." Oh, yeah, shut up, But she was extolling the virtues today. So look, I have the formal task of welcoming you all to the conference, which is a real pleasure. But it does mean I'm standing between you and a glass of wine. So I will keep this mercifully short. But you've given us an opportunity, and we always take them. So what I'd like to do is briefly touch on one item tonight, and that's the sort of impact of digital technology and the implications for government. Now, the economic changes driven by technology and the importance of innovation is hardly what you'd call news. Some of you may remember a person called Paul Keating, and to paraphrase our former Prime Minister, he once said that every parrot in every pet shop in the country is talking about it, and I think we can say that's definitely the case with innovation. But familiarity with a topic does not reduce its importance, nor does it make the dealing and grappling with the challenges any easier. And I'd like to start by saying that we at Telstra grapple with or operate in a number of industries where digital technology and digital revolution is fundamentally changing the industry we're in. And what I mean by digital revolution, and it's got lots of different terms, but basically I mean mass digitisation of information, ubiquitous broadband, particularly mobiles, growth of cloud computing, and the pervasive or increasingly pervasive use of data analytics. And for for a firm like ours, this has really significant impacts. On the supply side, it means that our competitors change quite dramatically. It means the services we have to offer changes year on year quite significantly. And on the demand side, we see it with our customers really changing their expectations on the way they're served and really what they're demanding from us on a day-to-day basis. And to say this is challenging for any organisation would be an understatement, but of course it's also very exciting and offers many opportunities. And I say all of this because I think it's fair to say that for governments, these challenges and opportunities have to date been slightly less muted. Not lacking, but muted. Indeed, research that my colleague Jack Dan will be talking about as part of a panel tomorrow, or I think the next day, on connected government, will set out some of the research that we've done with the ANU and others that shows that citizens are very, very eager for governments to embrace the digital revolution in the way they supply services. And as a product of the ANU and as a product of the Productivity Commission, when I think about this issue, I always ask the question, what's the role for government? And I think there's really three broad roles that government can play in addressing the impact of the digital revolution. And I did think there was three, and then I listened to Peter's oration, and now I think there's about 33, but let me stick to the original three. First, government plays an important role in facilitating the transition for business. Now, many businesses, particularly small businesses in Australia, don't think the digital revolution's for them. They think it's all too hard, or they think it's really not going to impact their business directly. Now, the reality is there's a wave of business model disruption coming at every business in Australia. For some, like the music industry, it's obvious, but for others it's still coming, it's still to come, but it is coming. And really the only question is, do you get swamped or do you ride the wave? Now, we at Telstra believe we're in the surfboard business and this, but we believe that government plays a fundamental role in helping firms across Australia get ready for this digital revolution. Obviously, the government, the Australian federal government's innovation paper, and I know the New Zealand government have been doing some really interesting stuff as well, but those are really important first initiatives, and we're very supportive of that. But I think there's a hell of a lot to do, and one of the things that I think is really important is we need to tell businesses this is not about startups, not only about startups. It's not only about Silicon Valley envy. It's about preparing firms to embrace all of the changes that digital technology has to offer. Now, the second role for government is to ensure that all its other policies are pulling in the same direction. And this is probably the hard stuff, but this is the tax policy, the education policy that we're all very much aware of. The third, and I believe, though, possibly most important role for government in this space is to move from being a laggard to a leader in the adoption and application of digital technology. A cursory look at the productivity statistics of industries dominated by government, health, education, transport, social services, shows the very real potential for greater usage of these technologies. The paper Jack will present tomorrow acknowledges the barriers. We're not naive here. We understand the very real challenges that are particular to the public sector on this. But we set out some concrete proposals which we hope will provide a way forward. So I'd really hope you find that helpful in your deliberations. So with that, I remember the first discussions around establishing ANZOG and the very real need that was identified way back then for getting the best academics and the best government practitioners and bringing them together in a consistent and rigorous way. And I think it's been most pleasing to see this develop, and we've seen the impact of this training and these discussions right across Australia, and I would argue particularly in New Zealand. And with innovation and technology rapidly changing the world faster than ever before, I can only think that forums like this and training programs like this become ever more important. So with that, let me conclude by thanking you for your attention. congratulating again the students on their wonderful achievement, and thank you, Peter, for a terrific oration. And I welcome you all to the 2016 Australia and New Zealand School of Government Annual Conference, and in particular the reception out the front for the wine. Take care. Thank you very much.